I was victorious. There I stood on my perfectly manicured, HOA-compliant in every other way lawn, sipping a lukewarm Coors Light and staring at my driveway. It was, to put it mildly, the single ugliest thing I had ever seen in a suburban setting. It was brown. Not a rich, earthy brown. Not a warm, welcoming cedar brown. No, this was the flat, fibrous, vaguely nauseating brown of a wet cardboard box, or a massive 60-foot-long piece of particle board that had been left out in the rain. It was mottled, lumpy, and looked like it might give you a splinter if you looked at it too hard. And it was the most beautiful, satisfying, triumphant thing I had ever created. My wife, Sarah, slid the kitchen window open, breaking my reverie. The smell of whatever garlic and onion thing she was making for dinner wafted out, mixing bizarrely with the powerful sawmill in August scent radiating from my driveway. "Mike," she called out, "are you okay? You've been staring at that thing for 20 minutes. Mrs. Petrov across the street is pretending to garden just to get a better look, and I think she's about to call someone." I took a long, slow sip of my beer and grinned, not taking my eyes off my masterpiece. "I'm more than okay, honey," I said. "I'm a conquering hero. I'm a craftsman. I am compliant." Sarah just sighed and slid the window shut. She didn't get it. Not yet. But she would. You're probably wondering how a man, a reasonably sane 38-year-old software project manager named Michael Mike Harrison, comes to intentionally coat his entire two-car driveway in 300 pounds of industrial-grade wood pulp. Well, it all started 2 weeks ago with a sunny Saturday, a rented pressure washer, and a 5-gallon bucket of the good stuff. 2 Saturdays prior, I woke up with a dangerous idea. I was going to be productive. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, undisoriented, I might add, and my driveway was looking a little faded. It was that sad, patchy gray that asphalt gets when it's given up on life. "Today's the day," I announced to Sarah, who was peacefully trying to drink her coffee. "I'm sealing the driveway." "Oh," she said, which I interpreted as, "Wow, Mike, what a fantastic and proactive use of your weekend." So I went to Home Depot. I didn't cheap out. I got the big, roaring, gas-powered pressure washer. I got the squeegee on a 10-foot pole. I got the crack filler. And most importantly, I got the sealant. I didn't get the matte or satin finish. Oh no. I got the premium ultra-gloss wet look sealant. The bucket practically had lens flares on the logo. The description promised a mirror-like finish that protects and beautifies. I was in. I spent the next 6 hours in suburban dad heaven. I blasted 2 years of grime and sadness off that asphalt. I meticulously filled every tiny crack. Then I rolled on the sealant. It was thick, black, and smelled like pure, unadulterated petroleum. It was glorious when I was done. I roped it off with some yellow caution tape I had left over from a long-forgotten Halloween costume. I stepped back, cracked that first celebratory beer of this story, and admired my work. It was stunning. My driveway was no longer a driveway. It was a sheet of obsidian. It was a river of liquid midnight. It was a sleek, black mirror you could practically shave in. You could see the perfect, fluffy white clouds drifting by in its surface. I was half convinced I'd just increased our property value by 10%. I was proud. I figured, best case scenario, I win Yard of the Month for sure. Worst case, I inspire my lazy neighbor Gary to finally mow his lawn. I was a pillar of the community. What could possibly go wrong? Michael? The voice cut through the idyllic Saturday afternoon like a weed whacker hitting a rock. It was a voice that didn't know the meaning of inside voice. It was a voice that sounded like it was permanently ordering a barista to remake a latte. I turned, and there she was. Brenda. Brenda was our newly elected HOA president, a position she had campaigned for with the rabid intensity of a senatorial race. She was in her late 40s, wearing a blindingly white tennis skirt, a pink polo shirt with the collar popped, and sunglasses so large they could have been welding goggles. Brenda didn't walk. She marched, a clipboard her permanent accessory, a weapon she wielded like a medieval scepter. She had stopped dead at my caution tape, hands planted firmly on her hips. "Michael," she repeated, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension that takes years to perfect. "What is this?" I gave her my best friendly neighbor smile. "Hey, Brenda, just sealing the driveway. Pretty great, right? Looks like a mirror." "A mirror," she said, her lips pursing into a tiny knot of disapproval. "That's precisely the problem. It's shiny." I let out a confused little laugh. Yeah, that's the point. It's wet look sealant. It protects the— It's a nuisance," she cut me off. She took a step closer, as if my driveway might leap out and attack her. "The glare, it's—" She pointed a perfectly manicured finger toward her house, 2 doors down and across the street. "It's reflecting onto my prize-winning azaleas. I believe it's stressing them." I blinked. I waited for the punchline. There was no punchline. "It's stressing your plants?" "Excessive UV reflection can cause leaf scorch," she snapped, as if she were a botanist for the Royal Gardens and not just someone with a subscription to Better Homes and Gardens. "Brenda, it's just sealant," I stammered, my good mood rapidly evaporating. "It'll probably dull down in a few weeks, right?" "That's not acceptable," she said. She pulled out her phone, which was, of course, in a hot pink diamond-encrusted case, and took a picture. The click of the shutter sounded like a tiny guillotine. "I'm going to have to consult the bylaws. This is ostentatious." "Ostentatious?" I was baffled. "It's a driveway. We all have to make sacrifices for the harmony of the community, Michael." She huffed, spun on her bright white keds, and marched off, clipboard held high. I stood there, beer in hand, watching her go. "Stressing her azaleas," I muttered. I laughed it off. I genuinely, truly laughed. I thought it was the end of it. I thought it was just Brenda being Brenda, a story I'd tell Gary later over the fence. I was so young then, so naive. I had no idea that I had just fired the first shot in what would come to be known, at least in my head, as the Great Driveway War. The next 3 days were a blissful honeymoon period with my new driveway. The sealant cured perfectly. It was so shiny that at night, the moonlight made it look like a pathway to another dimension. I loved it. Sarah said it was a bit much, but I knew she was secretly impressed. Then, on Wednesday, the letter arrived. It didn't just come in the regular mail. Oh no, this was delivered by our mailman, Carl, who had to get me to sign for it. It was certified mail, in a stiff, beige envelope that just screamed, "Official business." "Certified mail," I said to Sarah, holding it up. Not an email, not a friendly note dropped in the mailbox. Certified mail. This is how you know the fun police mean business. "Oh God, Mike, what did you do?" "Me? I did nothing. I improved our property." I tore it open. The letterhead was aggressively formal. "The Estates at Willow Creek, Homeowners Association Board. Dear Mr. Harrison, It has come to the attention of the board, see, not just Brenda, but the anonymous all-powerful board, that a modification has been made to your property at 124 Oak Street. Modification, I read aloud. She calls sealing a driveway a modification, like I added a second story. Just keep reading, Sarah said, chewing on a fingernail. Specifically, the application of a high-gloss surface treatment to your driveway. Please be advised that this is in violation of the Willow Creek HOA covenants, conditions and restrictions, CCNRs. You are in violation of Addendum 7.4b, nuisance glare and visual disturbances. I stopped. Addendum? 7.4b? I read the bylaws when we moved in. I was looking for rules about sheds. There was no 7.4b. Read the fine print at the bottom, Sarah said, pointing. I squinted. Addendum 7.4b was passed by an emergency board vote on date 2 days ago. She created a rule after I did it, I yelled, waving the paper. That's not even legal, is it? Can she do that? She is the board, Mike. She probably got her 2 cronies to vote with her. The letter got better. It detailed the nature of my crime. This high-gloss surface creates an unacceptable level of solar reflection, which constitutes a visual nuisance to your neighbors and, I had to read the next part twice, and potentially disorients local bird life, posing a risk to community fauna. I dropped the letter on the counter. The birds. The birds, Mike, Sarah said, her voice flat. She's blaming my driveway for birds. I was losing my mind. What am I, a Batman villain? The glarer, confusing the local robin population? What's the demand? Sarah asked, picking up the letter. Demand for remedy. The homeowner, Mr. Harrison, must remedy the reflective nature of the driveway surface within 14 days of receipt of this notice. Failure to comply will result in an initial fine of $100,000, followed by a compounding fine of $50,000 per day until the issue is resolved. She's fining me, I was practically shouting now. She's fining me for a shiny driveway that she decided was illegal after I did it. All because her stupid azaleas are stressed. And the birds, Mike, Sarah added, unhelpfully. Don't forget the birds. My hands were shaking. I wasn't going to let this stand. This was America. A man's driveway is his castle. Or at least, the shiny path to his castle. I stalked to the welcome mat, where we keep the neighborhood directory, found Brenda's number, and stabbed at my phone screen. It rang twice. Brenda speaking, HOA president. She answered like she was the damn Pope. Brenda, it's Mike Harrison. Michael, she said. Her voice was pure ice. I assume you've received the notice. You're kidding me, right? I burst out, abandoning all pretense of civility. You're fining me? For sealing my driveway? Disorients local bird life. The covenants are very clear, Michael. We must maintain the aesthetic harmony of Willow Creek. Your driveway is disruptive. It's been disruptive for 3 days, and you just passed this rule. You can't just invent a rule to fine me. As HOA president, I must be proactive in protecting our neighborhood, she said, her voice calm and infuriating. Several neighbors have complained. Who? I demanded. Who complained? Mrs. Petrov? Did she complain? Because she just waves at me. I am not at liberty to disclose the names of other concerned residents. The point is, your driveway is ostentatious. There it was again. That word. Ostentatious. It's asphalt, Brenda. It's not like I paved it with gold bricks. What am I even supposed to do? The sealant is on. It's cured. I can't just unseal it. There was a long, cold pause on the other end of the line. "I'm sure you'll figure something out, Michael," she said, her voice turning sickly sweet. "Perhaps you should have chosen a matte finish. We all have to make sacrifices for the harmony of the community. But you have 13 days left. I'd suggest you get started. Goodbye." Click. She hung up on me. I stood in my kitchen, phone in my hand, vibrating with a level of pure, unadulterated rage I hadn't felt since college, when my roommate taped over the end of the Star Wars trilogy with a fishing show. "She hung up on me," I said to Sarah. "Of course she did," Sarah replied, pulling a bottle of wine from the fridge. "It's Wednesday, but I think this calls for wine." I was stewing. I was pacing. I felt trapped. This wasn't just a fine. This was a matter of principle. This was tyranny. So I did what any red-blooded American male does when he feels unjustly persecuted by a minor authority figure. I took my grievance to social media, the neighborhood Facebook group. I took a picture of the letter, blacking out the fine amounts, no need to look that petty, and posted it. Mike Harrison. "Hey neighbors, just got this lovely violation notice. Apparently my freshly sealed driveway is disorienting local bird life and is too ostentatious. Just a friendly warning to anyone else planning on, maintaining their property. Seems like glare is now a finable offense, thanks to a brand new emergency rule. Has anyone else had issues with this?" I hit post and sat back, cracking my knuckles. Let's see how the community liked this. The response was immediate. Gary, lazy neighbor. "LOL, are you serious, man? Disorienting birds? That's a new one. Brenda is on a power trip." Glaregate. Cynthia, Brenda's crony 101. "I don't think this is funny, Gary. I live 2 doors from Brenda, and the glare at 4:15 p.m. is quite strong. I had to close my blinds yesterday. We have rules for a reason." Mike Harrison. "But Cynthia, the rule was made after I did the work." Brenda, HOA president. "Michael, this forum is for community announcements and lost pets, not for shaming the board for doing its job. Your violation is clear. Please handle this privately." Gary. "Shame? She's the one who should be ashamed. My Doris saw a finch fly into a window last week. Probably Mike's driveway's fault." LMAO. Janet, Brenda's crony number 2. "I'm very concerned about the birds. Think of the birds, Mike. Why do you need a driveway that's so aggressive?" Some guy I've never met. This is what's wrong with HOAs. I'm so glad I live in the next neighborhood over. Brenda. "Gary, that is uncalled for. Michael, you have 13 days. This discussion is now closed." She couldn't close the discussion, but she did get the admin to turn off commenting. I was stunned. It wasn't just her. She had an army. An army of glare haters and bird truthers. I was living in a sitcom, a really, really dumb sitcom, and I was the guy who was about to lose a fight to a shrub. "Okay," I said, closing my laptop. She wants me to remedy the glare. She wants me to figure something out. "Mike?" Sarah asked, pouring a very large glass of wine. "What are you thinking?" Don't do anything stupid." "Stupid?" I asked. "Oh no, I'm not going to do anything stupid. I'm going to do something compliant." A slow, evil, beautiful idea was beginning to form. For the next week, I was a man obsessed. But first I had to try the sane route. I had to show I'd made an effort. My new remedy deadline was looming, and the fines were very real. That Saturday, I went back to Home Depot, but this time with a sense of shame. I bought a deck scrubbing brush with bristles stiff enough to groom a dinosaur. I bought a gallon of industrial degreaser, hoping it would chemically dull the finish. I spent 4 hours scrubbing a 10 by 10 section of my driveway. I scrubbed until my shoulders screamed. I poured degreaser on it, let it sit, and scrubbed again. The result? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The sealant was, as advertised, premium and ultra. It laughed at my efforts. In fact, after I hosed it all down, the section I had scrubbed was just cleaner. It was even shinier than the rest. "This is insane," Sarah said from the porch, where she was sipping an iced tea. "You're spending your second Saturday in a row on this driveway. The first time you were happy. Now you look like you're trying to scrub away a murder scene." "I have to," I grunted, throwing the brush down. "She's going to fine me. She'll fine me into oblivion. I'm not giving her the satisfaction of paying a single dollar. There has to be a way to make it less shiny." I tried tossing a fine layer of sand over it. It looked okay. Until the first gust of wind came, creating a mini sandstorm that pelted Mrs. Petrov's windows. She did not look happy. I had to sweep it all up. I was defeated. I was sitting on the front steps, head in my hands, staring at the violation letter. The words swam in front of my eyes. Remedy the reflective nature. It didn't say how. It didn't say, remove the sealant. It didn't say, replace the driveway. It just said, remedy the reflection. That's when I heard it. Bzzz. It was the high-pitched whine of a table saw. My neighbor, Gary. He was in his garage, as he was most Saturdays, doing some woodworking project. He was building a birdhouse, ironically enough. The sound was annoying. But then, the smell hit me. It was that dry, dusty, warm smell of fresh-cut pine. It was the smell of high school wood shop, of Home Depot's lumber section, of dryness. I looked at my driveway, the premium ultra-gloss wet-look monstrosity. It was the definition of wet. I looked at Gary's garage, where a small mountain of pale, fluffy sawdust was piling up near his open door. It was the definition of dry. What's the opposite of a shiny, wet look? A dusty, dry look. What's the most natural, non-reflective, bird-friendly surface on Earth? Dirt. Or a byproduct of nature. My gaze shifted from Gary's sawdust pile to my gleaming black driveway, and back to the violation letter. Remedy the reflective nature. Potentially disorients local bird life. Sawdust doesn't reflect. Sawdust is natural. Birds love sawdust, right? They build nests with it, or something. I had no idea if they did, but Brenda didn't know either. A slow, evil, beautiful, terrible grin spread across my face. I could feel it. It probably looked horrifying. "Sarah," I whispered. "Mike," she said, setting down her tea. "Why are you grinning like that? You look like the Grinch trying to figure out how to steal Christmas." "Honey," I said, standing up, "I have an idea. A wonderful, awful idea. I know how to fix the driveway. I know how to be compliant." "Oh no," she said. "Mike, whatever it is, let's just pay the first fine." "Never," I said, marching into the house and grabbing my phone. "Get your coat. We're going to need more sealant, but not the shiny kind." "What? Why?" "To act as glue," I said. "Now how do I buy a lot of sawdust?" This, it turned out, was the real fun. You can't just go to Home Depot and buy one driveway's worth of sawdust. You have to get creative. My first call was to a local paving contractor. This seemed logical. They deal with driveways. Paving contractor. Dialogue. Acme Paving, this is Bill. Mike. Dialogue. Hi, Bill. I have let's call it a creative paving question. I just sealed my asphalt driveway with a high-gloss sealant. Bill. Great, that'll protect it. Best thing you can do. Mike. Right, it's too good, actually. A little too shiny. So my question is, could I hire you to, say, cover it in sawdust? Bill. Sir? Mike. Just cover it in sawdust for, traction. Bill. Traction. Right. You want to put sawdust on top of fresh sealant. Mike. Well, it's cured now. I was thinking we'd roll on a new sticky layer and then, sprinkle the sawdust on top? Bill. A long, heavy sigh. Sir, in 25 years of paving, that is the single stupidest thing I have ever heard. You want to bread your driveway? Mike. I mean, bread is an interesting verb, but yes, that's the idea. Bill. No, we don't do that. We pave things. We don't season them. Don't call here again. Click. Okay. So, paving contractors were out. They were artists, and I was asking them to deface their art form. I got it. My second call was to a landscaping company. They deal with mulch, wood chips. Close enough. Landscaping cone. Dialogue. Greenleaf Landscaping. How can I help you? Mike. Dialogue. Hi, do you deliver mulch? Landscaper. Dialogue. Sure do, bud. We've got pine bark, cedar, cypress, black, red. How many yards you need? Mike. Excellent. Now, a weirder question. Do you have just sawdust? Like all sawdust? Landscaper. You mean wood chips? Mike. No, finer, much finer, like the dust from a saw, lots of it. Landscaper. So, you want dust. A pile of dust. Mike. Preferably a dump truck full of it. It's for a large art project, a natural ground covering aesthetic. Landscaper. Aesthetic. Mike. Yep. Landscaper, sounding genuinely concerned. Bud. No. We don't sell dust. We sell mulch. Are you okay? Mike. Never been better. Thanks for your time. Click. This was harder than I thought. I was striking out. I was trying to buy the waste product of a waste product. I had to go to the source. I had to find a place that made sawdust. I Googled lumber mill near me. There was one about 40 miles outside the city. A hardwood processing and milling plant. Bingo. I called the number. A gruff voice answered on the third ring. Yeah, S&K Mill. Mike. Dialogue. Hi. I have a very strange request. My name is Mike, and I was wondering, what do you guys do with all your sawdust? Mill foreman. Dialogue. Long pause. What? Mike. Your sawdust. You must make a ton of it. Do you just throw it out? Foreman. Mostly sell it for horse bedding. Composite board manufacturers. Why? You need a bag for your hamster? Mike. No, I need more. I need a truckload. A dump truckload. Foreman. A sound that was half cough, half laugh. You need a dump truck of sawdust. Mike. As fine grain as you can get. Pine, oak, whatever you've got. I'll pay cash. Foreman. A dump truck. Mike. That's right. There was another long pause. I could hear him scratching his beard over the phone. Foreman. Son, if you're paying cash for it, I'll load a dump truck with my wife's casserole. It's your funeral. That'll be $200 for the dust and the delivery. Where's this project at? Mike, 124 Oak Street, in the estates at Willow Creek. Foreman, Willow Creek? That rich people place? You're gonna dump 2 tons of sawdust in Willow Creek? Mike, yep, it's for an HOA compliance issue. Foreman, a sudden, genuine laugh. An HOA, oh, that's rich. You know what, son, I like you. I'll have Hank bring it by this Friday. 10 a.m. sharp. You just tell me where you want it. I hung up the phone. I pumped my fist. I got it, I yelled to Sarah. I've got my payload. You're really doing this, she said, her face pale. You're going to dump sawdust on our driveway. I'm not dumping it, honey, I said, grabbing my car keys. I'm applying it. Now, let's go buy that glue. Friday, day 13. D-Day, or more accurately, S-Day. Sawdust Day. The dump truck was scheduled for 10 o'clock a.m. Brenda's deadline was 5 o'clock p.m. I woke up at 7 o'clock a.m. with the jittery, nervous energy of a general before a battle. Sarah had already left for work, giving me a look that was one part, I love you, one part, I'm calling my mother, and one part, I'm pretending I don't know you for the next 24 hours. At 8 o'clock a.m., I went to Home Depot for the 3rd Saturday, Friday, in this saga. I felt like I should have my own parking spot. I wasn't in the sealant aisle this time. Oh no, I was in the roofing aisle. I found the guy who looked like he'd been roofing since the dawn of time. Excuse me, I said. I need glue, the stickiest outdoor adhesive you sell, the kind that never comes off, ever. He grunted and pointed a leathery finger. You want the Ultra Pro 9000 roof and flashing sealant. It's basically liquid tar. Comes in a 5-gallon bucket. What are you patching? A large, flat surface, I said evasively. Well, he said, whatever you stick with this, it ain't unstickin'. It'll survive a hurricane. It'll probably survive the apocalypse. Good luck. I bought 10 gallons, 2 giant buckets of black, goopy Armageddon. I got home, poured the first bucket into a paint tray, and stared at my beautiful, shiny, ostentatious driveway. This was the moment of no return. For the birds, I muttered, and I dipped the roller. I spent the next hour rolling this horrible, tar-like glue all over my pristine, high-gloss surface. It was the most counterintuitive, soul-destroying home improvement project in history. It smelled like a tire fire. It was thick and stringy. It looked like I had murdered 1,000,000 licorice sticks and smeared their remains all over my property. My driveway was no longer a shiny mirror. It was a giant, black, sticky trap, glistening evilly in the morning sun. Gary, my neighbor, came out to get his mail. He saw what I was doing, his jaw dropping. Mike, what are you doing? He asked, walking over. Are you resealing it? With tar? It's the adhesive layer, Gary, I said, not breaking my rhythm. Roll, dip, spread. The substrate. Substrate? For what? Right on cue, a deep, rumbling thrum echoed down the street. A massive 10-wheel dump truck, stained red with clay and rust, was turning the corner onto our quiet, pristine street. Brenda's prize-winning azaleas practically vibrated with fear. For that, I said, grinning. The truck was a beautiful monster. It was the most industrial, out-of-place thing our neighborhood had ever seen. It dwarfed Brenda's little white SUV. The driver, a guy named Hank, with a beard down to his chest and a camouflage hat, eased the truck up to the curb, the brakes hissing. He hopped down from the cab, a massive, muscular guy. He looked at my black, sticky driveway, He looked at his truck bed, which was heaped with a mountain of fine, pale pine sawdust. He looked back at me. He took a long, slow chew of whatever was in his cheek. 124 Oak Street? He rumbled. That's me, I said. Mike? Hank, he nodded. He pointed at the driveway with his thumb. So, Bill at the mill wasn't joking. He was not. Hank stared at the driveway for another solid 10 seconds. You're breading your driveway. That's the second time I've heard that verb, I said. And yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. Hank let out a single, sharp bark of a laugh. I've been doing this 30 years, man. I've delivered gravel to billionaires and sand to idiots who wanted an inland beach. This is a first. You're the boss. You want it on the driveway? Just as even as you can, Hank, I said. Dump it slow, starting at the top. I'll spread it. It's your funeral, bud. He climbed back into the cab, the whole thing groaning. Here it comes. With a deafening clank and a hydraulic hiss, the giant red bed of the truck began to tilt. A small avalanche of sawdust started, and then it became a waterfall. A glorious, pale yellow waterfall of pure, processed wood. It hit the black adhesive with a soft, satisfying whoosh. The smell. Oh, the smell. It was overwhelming. It was no longer a hint of pine. It was like a forest had exploded. It was the smell of 1,000,000 hamster cages. Hank was a pro. He slowly backed the truck up as I gestured frantically, letting the sawdust pour out in a thick, even river, covering the black tar completely. In 2 minutes, it was done. The truck bed slammed back down. A giant, pyramid-shaped mountain of sawdust now sat where my driveway used to be. A fine, dusty haze hung in the air. Hank got out, clipboard in hand. That's 2 tons of fine pine, just like you asked. It's beautiful, Hank, I said, almost choking on the dust. You're a weird dude, Mike, he said, handing me the receipt to sign. But I respect it. Good luck with the, HOA. He clearly knew the score. He climbed back in, gave a blast of his air horn that probably gave Brenda a heart attack at her Pilates class, and rumbled away, leaving me alone with my creation. Now came the labor. The adhesive was setting fast. I grabbed the only tools I had for the job, a wide-headed snow shovel and a stiff, bristled push broom. For the next 2 hours, I was a man possessed. I was a human Zamboni, but with sawdust. I shoveled the massive pile, spreading it evenly from the garage doors all the way to the sidewalk. I pushed it into the corners. I used the broom to smooth it, to work it into the sticky tar, to make sure every inch of the reflective surface was covered. It was the most absurd, Sisyphean, and deeply satisfying task I had ever undertaken. I was flocking my driveway like a model train set as I worked. The neighborhood began to notice. This was no subtle act. Mrs. Petrov was out, this time not even pretending to garden. She was just staring, her mouth open. The guy across the street, who I'd only ever seen wash his BMW, was standing on his lawn, hands on his head. And then, Gary. Gary came out of his garage, saw the dump truck marks, saw the 2-ton pile of sawdust, and saw me, covered head to toe in a fine layer of pine dust, looking like a sugar-coated donut. He didn't say a word. He just started to laugh. It wasn't a chuckle. It was a deep, wheezing, breathless cackle. He had to lean against his mailbox for support. Mike, oh my God, Mike, he sputtered, pulling out his phone. It's not shiny, Gary, I yelled, pausing my sweeping. It's compliant. This only made him laugh harder. He was filming it. "You're a legend, man. An absolute first-ballot Hall of Fame legend. She's going to have an aneurysm." "That's the plan," I yelled back, and I got back to work. By 12:30 p.m., I was done. I'd packed it down. I'd swept the excess off the sidewalk and the lawn. It was finished. You couldn't see an inch of black. You couldn't see a hint of wet look. It was just wood. A solid, non-reflective, natural material, bird-safe, glare-free, HOA-compliant nightmare. I went inside, chugged a gallon of water, and sat by the living room window. Now, all I had to do was wait for the Queen to come home. At 4:45 p.m., exactly 15 minutes before my deadline, her white Lexus SUV turned onto our street. I was sitting on my front porch, drinking another Coors Light. I'd showered, changed, and positioned myself for a perfect view. This was the opening night of my one-man show. Brenda's SUV slowed as it approached my house. It slowed and slowed, and then just stopped, right in the middle of the street. She got out of the car, leaving the driver's side door open. Her face was a mask of pure, uncomprehending shock. Her designer sunglasses were on, but I could feel the heat of her gaze from 50 feet away. She walked onto the sidewalk, slowly. She was no longer marching. She was in a daze, like a sleepwalker. She stepped onto the edge of my lawn, as if she was afraid to get closer. "Michael," she said. Her voice wasn't the usual commanding bark. It was a strained, high-pitched whisper. "What did you do?" I stood up, gave her my biggest, friendliest, compliant neighbor smile, and walked over to the edge of my lawn. "I fixed it, Brenda," I said, spreading my arms wide as if presenting a new car on a game show. "Just like you asked. Took your notes to heart." She was speechless. She just pointed a trembling finger. It's sawdust." "That's right," I said cheerfully. "I was thinking, what's the opposite of a shiny, wet-look surface? And it hit me, a dry, natural surface. See? No more glare. You're welcome." She took her sunglasses off. Her eyes were wide, and a tiny muscle in her eyelid was twitching. "It's hideous. It's a mess. It's wood pulp." "I prefer particulate, Brenda," I corrected gently. "And it's not a mess. It's very evenly distributed. And most importantly, it's 100% compliant with Addendum 7.4b. Look," I pointed up, "not a single disoriented bird in sight. They're probably relieved. It's natural material, after all. Very zen." Her face went from a pale, stunned white to a splotchy red. And then it happened. It was a shade of purple I had only ever seen on an eggplant. A deep, throbbing, Venus purple. You're mocking me," she shrieked, finally finding her voice. "Mocking you? Brenda, I am thanking you. You challenged me to find a solution, and I did. I've remedied the reflective nature. I'm a problem solver. You should be giving me an award." "You have ruined your property," she screamed, attracting the attention of several other neighbors, who were now peering out their windows. Gary was already back on his porch, phone in hand. "You've ruined my property values. This is vandalism." "It's not vandalism if it's my own house, Brenda," I said, my smile unwavering. That's it! I'm calling the police!" She stomped back to her car, grabbed her phone, and I could hear her screaming into it. "Yes, 911! A public nuisance! Vandalism! My neighbor he's covered his property in filth. I just leaned against my mailbox, folded my arms, and waited. This was going to be good. 20 minutes later, a cruiser rolled up. Not one, but 2 cops. Officer Miller, an older, grisly-looking guy who looked like he'd seen it all, and Officer Sanchez, who was younger and looked like he was desperately trying not to laugh before he'd even gotten out of the car. Brenda marched over to them before they'd even cut the engine. "Officers, thank God! Arrest this man!" Officer Miller sighed, the sound of a man who was 3 years from retirement and had dealt with Brenda one too many times. "Okay, Brenda, what is it this time? Did his flagpole exceed the height limit again by 3 inches? No, look!" she shrieked, pointing at my driveway like it was a dead body. "Just look at what he did!" Miller and Sanchez both turned. They looked at my beautiful, lumpy, brown driveway. They looked at me, leaning casually by the mailbox. They looked at each other. Officer Sanchez put his hand over his mouth and coughed, but it sounded suspiciously like a snort. "Ma'am," Officer Miller said, his voice a gravelly monotone. "It looks like he covered his driveway in sawdust." "It's a public hazard," Brenda insisted. It's a fire hazard. What if a cigarette?" I decided to help. "Don't worry, officer," I said, walking over. "It's perfectly safe. The sawdust is treated, and it's sealed underneath with a commercial-grade, fire-retardant adhesive. Safety first. I was just complying with the HOA violation she sent me." I pulled the creased, certified mail letter from my back pocket and handed it to Officer Miller. He took it. He read it. He looked at the driveway. He read the letter again. He looked up at me, and I could see, just for a second, the corner of his mustache twitch. She complained your driveway was too shiny," he asked, his voice deadpan. "And a hazard to local bird life, sir," I said respectfully. "A visual nuisance. So I made it non-reflective and, woody. For the birds." Officer Sanchez turned his back to us and suddenly became very interested in Brenda's azaleas across the street. His shoulders were shaking. He was gone. Officer Miller looked at Brenda. He looked at me. He handed the letter back. "Brenda," he said, and the sigh he let out could have powered a small windmill. "There's no crime here. It's his property. He hasn't vandalized anything." "But it's sawdust," she sputtered. "Ma'am, he could paint his driveway bright pink with purple polka dots if he wanted. It's an aesthetic choice." He looked at me. "A baffling one. But it's his. This is an HOA matter, not a police matter. There's nothing we can do." But, Brenda was at a total loss. Her main weapon, calling the authorities, had just been defused. "Ma'am," Officer Sanchez said, finally turning around, his face suspiciously red. "Unless the sawdust is actively attacking you, we can't arrest it. Please don't call 911 for this again. Have a good day, sir. Nice, driveway." They got back in their cruiser. As they pulled away, I could see both of them, Miller and Sanchez, just losing it. Laughing so hard the car was shaking. Brenda was left on the sidewalk, sputtering, defeated. She looked at me. She looked at the driveway. She made a sound like a deflating balloon and stomped back to her car, which was still in the middle of the road, and sped off. I took a long, victorious sip of my beer. Phase 1 was complete. This brings us back to where we started. Me on my lawn, admiring my handiwork. The conquering hero. My driveway was, for the next 2 weeks, the talk of the town. People I'd never met were driving by. Slowly. They'd stop, point, take pictures. I was a local legend. Gary told me I was trending on the local neighborhood app. Of course, the war wasn't quite over. Brenda, having failed with the police, went back to her own rulebook. The HOA board, her, Cynthia, and Janet, was in chaos. A week after the sawdusting, I got another letter. Not certified this time. Just regular mail, shoved angrily into my box. Dear Mr. Harrison, your remedy is not acceptable to the board. You are now in violation of Section 9.1a, Unapproved Surface Materials. Approved driveway surfaces are limited to poured concrete, stamped concrete, asphalt, or paving stones. Wood particulate is not an approved surface. You have 10 days to remove the unapproved material and restore your driveway to an acceptable state. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. This was amateur's hour. I sat down at my computer. I typed up a very polite, very professional response. I even had Sarah's friend who works as a paralegal look it over. Dear Brenda and the estates at Willow Creek HOA Board, thank you for your letter. I believe there has been a misunderstanding. As you know, on date, I was found in violation of Addendum 7.4b, nuisance glare. As per your demand, I have remedied this issue at significant personal cost and effort. My driveway is now 100% free of nuisance glare and is bird safe. Your new notice, citing Section 9.1a, directly conflicts with your previous demand. All approved surfaces, asphalt, concrete, etc., are, by their very nature, reflective to some degree. You cannot demand I have a non-reflective surface, and also demand I use only reflective surfaces. Per the legal doctrine of estoppel, your first demand and my subsequent compliance take precedence. You are estopped from enforcing a secondary, contradictory rule. My driveway is, and will remain, in full compliance with the first and most pressing violation notice. I have remedied the glare. My driveway is compliant. Fines related to this matter will be disputed. Sincerely, Michael Harrison, 124 Oak Street. I didn't even know what estoppel really meant, but it sounded expensive. It sounded lawyerly. I mailed it. And then, silence. Beautiful, golden, dusty silence. She had no answer. I'd checkmated her with her own stupid rules. About a week after I sent my estoppel letter, a big storm front moved in. It rained. It rained hard. I woke up the next morning and looked out the window. Sarah was beside me. Oh, Mike, look! The driveway, Tuam! Oh, it was so much worse. And by worse, I mean better. The 2 tons of fine pine sawdust had absorbed the water. It hadn't washed away. The roofing tar was too strong for that. No, it had clumped. It had congealed. It was now a lumpy, soggy, oatmeal-colored nightmare. It looked like a giant, sodden bowl of sadness. It was, without question, the ugliest driveway in the entire United States. Brenda was beside herself. She'd stopped leaving her house before 10 a.m., when she knew I'd be at work. I heard from Gary that she was exploring legal options, which meant she was calling lawyers who were telling her she had no case. The final, glorious moment came 3 days later. Gary texted me. Just 2 words. She cracked. I went to my front window, and there it was, planted right in the middle of Brenda's prize-winning azalea bed. A for sale sign. She was moving. I had won. I had defeated the final boss of the suburbs with $200 of wood waste and a $40 legal word. That evening, Gary came over. He wasn't laughing this time. He just walked up, holding 2 beers, a look of profound respect on his face. He handed one to me. We both stood on my lawn, looking at the lumpy, oatmeal-colored monstrosity. "Man," he said, taking a sip, "you're a legend, an absolute first-ballot Hall of Fame legend. She's actually moving." "I'm just a guy who likes his driveway, Gary," I said, trying to sound humble. "Right." He looked at the driveway, which was starting to dry out in patches, making it look like it had a bad skin condition. "So, what are you gonna do now? I mean, when it really dries out, the wind is gonna, you know." I took a long, slow sip of my beer, looking at the "for sale" sign glinting in the sunset. There was, I noted with satisfaction, absolutely no glare coming from my property. "What do you mean?" I said, turning to him with a perfectly straight face. "I bought a leaf blower. I'll just refluff it, and I've still got the lumbermill's number. This stuff is pretty cheap." Gary stared at me for a second, and then he just shook his head, a slow grin spreading across his face. "You're a sick man, Mike Harrison." "I'm a compliant man, Gary," I said, and we clinked bottles. "Compliant.